So we've got Dana on the line today. Dana, can you give us a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me. This is really fun. I love doing stuff like this. So I am an IT recruiter. I work for Vincent Benjamin Staffing. So we do both IT and finance agency recruiting. So I have a background in career consulting, everything from resume writing to interview coaching to understanding how to better network and kind of all of the above. And I just kind of figured out I didn't enjoy working for myself in my pajamas all day, every day. So I decided to take the skills I learned there and use them towards tech recruiting. And I fell in love with technical recruiting, and particularly in the web development and software space. That's really where I specialize on my team. And it's been awesome. Tech is super fun. I don't understand most of it, but I understand enough to be dangerous. So that's what I say. But yeah, that's about it.
So have you always focused on tech recruiting, or did you start in another space and move into tech?
No, so before I got into recruiting, I never had any experience in tech or recruiting either way. I had experience working with recruiters, and I'm a very tech savvy person. I'm naturally drawn to learning the newest and latest, greatest technologies and what they're used for and how those can benefit really anyone. So I've always been interested in technology. So when I came to Vincent Benjamin, I had the opportunity to choose which team I wanted to work for. And I jumped at the opportunity to join the technical recruitment team. So that's where I've been focused for almost a year and a half now.
Okay. And for Vincent Benjamin, do you guys focus on specific platforms like .NET and Java, or do you recruit for everything?
So we really recruit for everything across the board. I mean, I've placed help desk analysts, I've placed DBAs, I've placed senior software architects, I've placed DevOps engineers, you name it, we are across the board. On my team, I work on the contract to hire side. We also have a permanent placement team. So we tend to see different type of recs, but we work both Java, .NET, I mean, MeanStack, LampStack, you name it, we've worked it, and we have clients who need it.
Okay, interesting. So yesterday we talked to a gentleman named Greg Johnson, and I kind of mentioned the concept of working full desk versus the alternative. Can you just kind of describe, is your role working as, are you a full desk? Is that what you do, or do you do?
No. So when they talk about full desk recruiting, I'm sure you got an idea of what that looks like, but you work both on the client side and the candidate side. So me as just a plain old recruiter, I'm focused 100% on candidates. So I
Okay.
don't directly talk to the clients. I have business development managers who work with our clients and communicate to us about everything our clients are looking for. So we have those divided up on my team.
Okay. Have you ever worked at a place where you were full desk, and are you able to speak to like the pros and cons of working full desk versus the alternative, and do you like one versus the other? What are your thoughts there?
So I have never actually worked full desk myself, but
Okay.
I'm around people who work it every day, and I have a team of people who sit, right next to me who work full desk all day,
Mhm.
every day. And I think the pros of doing full desk is that a lot of times you are not just sitting on a computer talking to people on the phone, doing searches on Monster Career Builder, LinkedIn. You're also going out to client sites and you're meeting with CEOs and CTOs, and you're getting to see office environments and spend a lot of your time out in the market actually at these companies building relationships. Whereas if you're on the recruitment side, your time is spent 100% on finding quality technical candidates across the board. So, based on the jobs that we have available to us right now to work on, we pipeline candidates across the technical spectrum. So we can meet people in person and we go to meetup groups. I'm very involved in that aspect, but a lot of my time is spent sitting in a chair, unfortunately, behind the computer screen, talking on the phone with candidates all day, every day. So I get to really experience and understand what candidates and job seekers
Okay.
are looking for. And I'm not as focused on my clients because obviously I don't have the relationship with the clients.
Mhm.
I have the relationship with the candidates I place.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks for kind of diving into that the staffing world a little more and giving us a better idea of the picture of what it looks like. So let's jump into some of the student questions. Rex is asking, what are the most important elements of a successful new programmer's resume?
Yeah, I love this question because when I talk to candidates and their resume is less than stellar, I will always tell them and give them feedback. So I'm glad you asked this. The first thing I think that's most important for a new programmer or a new, really anything, is your projects. Having a clear and concise outline of what your projects, your internships, and your experience specific to the kind of jobs you're looking for, having that clearly defined on your resume and explaining in detail which technologies, languages, frameworks you used and exactly what you did to contribute to that project, so that I, as a recruiter or a hiring manager, can easily wrap my head around exactly what you did and with what technologies. That's the first thing that I think is most important, especially when you don't have paid work experience just yet. The other thing is an exhaustive list of technologies, tools, frameworks, languages, databases, and anything else that you have experience and knowledge or expertise with. Because what happens when a recruiter goes on a job board or a LinkedIn search, they're going to use specific technology, framework, languages as keywords to help find them the best matching candidates. So if any of those are missing, then you may not come up in my search results and I'm not going to call you.
Okay.
So that's really important. And then I think for anyone in the development space, whether it's web development or even, UI, UX, graphic design, any of that, having a personal website or portfolio, even if your personal website just has, a couple pictures of you and goes in depth about what you're interested in and who you are and what kind of projects you've worked on or volunteer efforts, something that shows you're going above just creating a resume to market yourself, I think is very important. And having those links on your resume for, LinkedIn, your portfolio site, if you have a good and meaningful Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, share that. But if it's not, then no, don't share that.
Okay.
And a lot of people make the mistake of sharing links to their public profiles, and there's just nothing of real value there. So, and that ends up hurting them. So you can do that, but only if you're legit on that page.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool that you mentioned the personal website. I don't think anyone's said anything about that yet. Yeah, that would definitely make you stand out for sure. When you mentioned that having a list of skills and technologies marked out on your resume, now, what's your thoughts on this? Because, I could have read a book about something, but I hadn't really used it, or maybe I have used it a little bit. How comfortable should I feel with it before I actually put it on the resume, on a scale of 1 to 10 or something?
So what you can actually do that I think is helpful is if you have just a familiarity with certain things, you can actually put the word familiarity and then a colon and list technologies after that. And then if you have actual hands-on experience, then you can put hands-on experience with. And then if you feel like I have a lot of expertise with, then you can put expertise colon with. So kind of divide those up. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. Because a lot of times employers will say, they really need to have expertise in these technologies, but as long as they're familiar with and have an understanding of these technologies, we're okay with that as well. So I do think that's beneficial.
Okay. Sounds like a good plan there. So Rex has another question. It was, what on a resume would immediately make you want to reject it?
And I'm thinking more from both a hiring manager's perspective and my own perspective. A poor formatting, you wouldn't think it would affect things, but it really does. If I can't easily scan your resume and get the gist of the job titles you've had and where you've worked and what you did in a matter of 10 seconds, then I might just move on to the next one.
Okay.
Spelling errors, grammatical errors, those little things, because especially when you're a hiring manager who's thinking about bringing on somebody to your team, if you're a person who has done your resume and you allowed yourself to have spelling errors and things that are essentially show detail-oriented personality. If you miss those things, then they're like, okay, well, if they're going to miss that, what are they going to miss when it comes to the code they're creating? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Totally.
little things like that really do make a big difference. Now, I myself, I'm one of those people who kind of reads between the lines, and I don't make snap judgments on who I call. If I feel like someone has solid experience at solid companies or is going to be a good fit, then I'm probably just going to call you. But a lot of hiring managers will not.
Right. So Mike has a couple questions for you. And one of them I think is related to something he saw on your LinkedIn profile. I think you mentioned something about finding your unique value proposition. And Mike wants to know, what is the unique value proposition?
I'm so glad you asked that. Because, that's something I used to consult on with people a lot, and something that I think is really lacking when I'm talking to candidates kind of across the board is that when I ask you, what do you yourself uniquely bring to the table that other people don't? And a lot of times it's like, I don't know. And you got to know
Good
that.
looks.
Right? I mean, if that's your answer, hey, at least you answered, you know, but so I think the unique value proposition is really what it is about you specifically that makes you stand out from the rest of the people who do what you do. And it might be something as simple as your mindset or the way you approach problems, or how many extra hours a week you spend in the books or watching webinars or whatever that is. But you have to know that about yourself so that when you're talking to hiring managers and recruiters and they ask you, what makes you different from anybody else? You're not umming and eyeing and being like, oh, I don't know,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. And being able to answer that quickly and concisely and confidently makes a huge difference when you're talking to recruiters and hiring.
Yeah. So we have another student, Josh. He has a question. He was wondering, what do you find most satisfying about placing a candidate?
I think for me, it comes from knowing what my candidates are looking for, and if I'm able to match them up to an opportunity that will allow them to grow within the technologies they're wanting to grow in and make a significant financial contribution to their goals, in terms of, hey, I'm making 25 now, I'm really aiming for making 30 an hour, can you get me that? And I'm like, yeah, I can get you that. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I can. And when that happens, an increase in salary like that can be life-changing for someone. And so doing that and just being able to match people well, things like culture. I mean, culture is so important now that if you're a culture-driven person, if teamwork, and I can't imagine anyone who would say that culture isn't important to them, but being able to successfully make that marriage happen and have it work out actually long-term, that's really rewarding.
Okay. And you just mentioned culture. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that means? Because some people that aren't familiar with the corporate world might be like, what does that mean, culture?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, and this might sound silly to some, but when you walk into an office and the vibe it gives you, the feeling it gives you sometimes, and I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced this, but when you walk into a room and there's 20 people in it, you immediately get a judgment of the vibe of that room, the personality of that room, even down to the decor. So when it comes to culture, what we mean by that is the personalities of the individuals that you're working with on a daily basis, the way that the office is structured, the way the office is organized, the way it's decorated. Is there, are there playrooms, if you will? Are there, is it open? Is it closed? Are there cubicles? Is it, even down to things like the lighting can impact a sense of culture in an organization. And every organization aims to create a culture that is unique to them. But depending on who they hire and how good they are at hiring people who match that culture they're looking to create, then, that culture can kind of go astray and be a negative thing. But it's kind of like when you go into a different city, like we live in Phoenix. If you live in downtown Phoenix and you're like, oh, I'm going to go hang out in Old Town, like the culture is completely different.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing when it comes to companies.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great answer. So another student we have, Callie, is wondering what habits would get you immediately rejected by a company?
I think initially my first instinct is to say poor phone and interview etiquette.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, because a lot of times the first, I mean, besides the resume, your first impression at most companies is going to be a phone interview.
Right.
And if you don't know how to act when you're on the phone, or if you don't know how to bring your personality forth on that phone call and keep your answers concise and, speak with a smile on your face, little things can really make you come across in a poor and ineffective way on the phone. The other couple things I want to talk about when it comes to immediate rejection that a lot of times I think we don't think enough about is that if I can find you elsewhere other than your resume, I'm going to find you on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And there have been times where, I go to someone's Twitter profile and I see what they're tweeting about and it's really negative. And I'm like, oh,
Okay.
because if and though you're not supposed to technically do that, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? I don't want to call someone who is this crazy negative, like ranting person. You don't
Yeah.
have to do that, but just know that if I see that as a recruiter or a potential employer, like I'm going to make immediate judgments about you, whether you like it or not. So that's something to always keep in mind. If I can find it as a recruiter, I'm going to find it. And if I could make snap judgments on you based on what you post, naturally as a human, that's what I'm going to do. So that's another big thing. But the final thing, I think that a habit that can immediately get you rejected is simply your lack of ability to sell yourself and know why you're valuable as an employee. Even if you have no experience for the job that you're applying for, you got to know why they should take a chance on you and be able to articulate that in a concise and confident way.
Right.
And that in and of itself can take a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just a matter of building your own self-confidence, just feeling that you're worth hiring,
Absolutely.
So Callie also has another question for you. Would it be a good idea for a new programmer to start with a large corporate business or a small one?
So this is a really good question. I'm glad it was asked. My first comment on that is that it really depends on what's important to you than anything else. But I will say there are definite differences when it comes to working for large or small organizations. I think large companies can oftentimes be great for very specific growth and mentorship paths and programs, but oftentimes you can get very siloed and not have the opportunity to work on as many different technologies and projects as you'd like. And so a lot of times, again, the larger the organization, the more that they really have to divvy up the work in a way that makes you focus on a very specific area for your whole day. And when you work for smaller organizations, you're probably going to wear a lot more hats. You're going to have an opportunity to work on a lot of different types of projects and potentially even learn more new and growing technologies. Because again, when you work in that large corporate environment, to get anything to change technology-wise or methodology-wise is going to take months.
Right.
So it all depends on your mindset.
Right.
I think some employers look at your resume and see, let's just say, a Wells Fargo or an Intel or an American Express and say, oh, that's a global, a large global enterprise company.
Right.
That's great. But when you really drill down into what that person was doing on a daily basis, a lot of times the scope and scale of what they actually touched and did on a daily basis is smaller. So
Right.
I think it just depends.
Okay. So just a matter of arming yourself with knowledge ahead of time and figuring out what is it that would work best for you maybe, and then going after the kind of company you want to be at.
Yeah. And I think too, something good to note at the beginning of your career, whether you're re-careering or you're at the beginning of your career in general, the only way for you to really know yourself is to get experiences. And
Mhm.
you may not know until you're inside. But
Right.
I think the most powerful thing when it comes to being in a job seeker seat is that the more you know about what's a good fit for you, what you need, what you want, what you don't want, what's going to work for you, the more you can be vigilant about asking these questions to your prospective employers about whether or not they actually fit that. And I think too many people go into these interviews and the job search lacking the knowledge about what they want and what they need
Right.
and who they are. So they don't ask these questions and then
Yeah.
they end up unhappy 3 months into the job.
Yeah. I think that's so true.
Yeah.
So we're going to start to wrap it up a little bit. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just wanted to ask the students out here, was there any questions that popped in your guys' head while we were chatting that you might want to ask while we got Dana on the line?
I'm an open book. Same.
I actually did have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, Kelly.
Okay, so down the line, as far as being a programmer, one of my end goals is to get into a game development job, like working for Bethesda or Rockstar Games, developing video games. So for a career choice, I could talk to a recruiter and they could help me switch careers.
I think so. I think recruiters can be very helpful. I truly think, though, when it comes to switching kind of the path that you're wanting to go or the type of areas you're wanting to focus in, I truly think that networking within that new industry, learning from people who have made that switch, talking to people who are already doing what you're wanting to do, I think that they will be a better resource for you than will recruiters, because from an agency recruiter standpoint, not necessarily internal recruitment, and I can differentiate between the two if you want, but from an agency perspective, when someone's trying to switch from one area of expertise to another, it's really, really hard for us as agency recruiters to be able to help you make that happen, simply because most of the time our clients come to us saying exactly what they need and want, and there's usually no flex on that. And most often they're looking for a very specific expert in these specific technologies and areas, and there isn't a whole lot of room for kind of helping with the career transition, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, not that they can't help you. I think that they absolutely can if it's the right person. But as far as actually placing you, I feel like you're going to have better luck networking and being vigilant about talking to game changers in that industry specifically is going to be much more helpful to you.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. Is there any other questions out here? Rex,
Yeah,
what's up?
one question. On new programmers going into the field, what is the typical duration of time on the first job in the field? I know job seekers frequently change every 2 or 3 years. Is that typical of programmers, or?
Yes, absolutely. In my experience, it's, it depends, and it also depends on if you're going to take the route of contracting. And oftentimes taking a contract is the best way for you to get your foot in the door, just to get any professional experience, because a lot of these companies are saying, we really want somebody in that, 1 to 2 year mark. And it's like, okay, well, I have to get the year. How am I going to do that? And so I would encourage you to open up your mind to considering contract roles, even if it's only 3 months. If you have professional on-site experience with a company, you are 5 to 10 times more valuable than you are without any at all, even if it's only 3 to 6 months. But I would say an average tenure of 1 to 2 years at a company is very, very common, because I think a lot of times the technologies are changing so quickly and companies are not able to keep up. And if they've got a rock star developer who wants to keep up with those technologies, they're going to get plucked by a more technologically innovative company. And that's a lot of times why the turnover is there. And I don't think it's a bad thing to spend a year at a company and then make a change. I think some hiring managers don't like that, but in general, it's the industry we're in, and that's the times right now. So I think that spending a year there is great. But at the same time, if you get into a company and you're miserable after 4 months, don't stay there a whole year. Like, you're going to be able to find another opportunity just because of the skill set and expertise that you're focusing on.
Yeah. I think, if at all possible, if you can get in that first job and stay there at least 2 years, I think that is excellent. But there's always exceptions to the rule, right? Like if you are miserable, yeah, don't stay there. Or if it's old technology, yeah, get out. But I think it looks really great if you can show that stability right off the bat.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We'll end it on a more lighthearted note, I guess. Josh had another question for you. He was wondering, what is your favorite coffee?
So I was like, what is my favorite coffee? Because I kind of change depending on the day. But
What's your favorite coffee on Tuesdays?
what did I have this past Tuesday? No, if it's black coffee, Dutch Brothers black coffee is amazing. If you haven't had their black coffee, it is awesome. I'm not a huge like sugary latte person, so their black coffee is awesome. But if I am gonna get a latte, I'm probably gonna go to Coffee Bean, and it's gonna be a hazelnut latte with almond milk, quadruple shot.
Wow. Okay.
A lot of caffeine. That requires a lot of caffeine. Yes, yes. So.
Cool. All right, Dana, thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us.
It was a
Really
pleasure.
appreciate it. I think we got a lot of great content in this video, and
I hope so.
awesome to share it with other people. But thanks so much.